Was Jesus a Marine? Is Jesus a Marine? That's what I've got titled up there. And I want you to turn over and read. We're going to read real quickly this verse here in Revelation 19:11. Is Jesus a Marine? And Revelations 19:11 says, "And I saw heaven opened, and behold a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make world peace." Make war. Now, we all know, I believe we all know anyway, and if you don't know, you should know, that the motto of the Marines is what? Semper Fidelis, right? And motto of the Marine Corps. And it was adopted by the Marines in 1883, and it's also the name of the Marine Corps hymn written by John Philip Sousa. And it means, I think we should know, if we don't, it means always faithful. And it's a high standard that the Marines put upon themselves, that regardless of what, no matter what goes on, they're going to be faithful. And Marines are proud of that. They're proud of their motto, proud of that we're always faithful. But they didn't come up with that motto. The motto actually came from years before. The motto was used in the 13th century. Semper Fidelis was used in the 13th century by 14 different families known as the Tribe of Galway in Northern Ireland. That was their motto too. It was also used as a motto for various people in England and on the mainland of Europe. So, but nevertheless, Marines are proud of their motto, always faithful. But whether a Marine or not, this idea of being always faithful is how we should conduct our lives. Always faithful. And whether it's in the Marines or Air Force or wherever you may be, you should have that personal motto and commitment that you're going to be faithful. And in court, the idea was you got to be faithful to your testimony. And so the person can stand for a judge, he raises his right hand, put his hand upon the Bible, and he said, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Because truth and faithfulness is what we need at this time. And this idea of faithfulness is not just a short issue, although you should live a life of faithfulness. And faithfulness to honesty, say, I'm faithful to my honesty 85% of the time, is really not good enough. If you're an honest person, your concept, the idea is to be faithful, 100% of the times. If you're only faithful to truth 85% of the times, and 15% of the times you can't be trusted. And even 99% of the time is not good enough. People think, well, he's faithful 99% of the time. Well, that sound maybe impressive, but not really. Because can you imagine getting married and you tell your future wife, say, honey, I promise to be faithful to you 99% of the time. that means 99, one day out of 99, once every 3 months, you're going to be unfaithful. Or vice versa. 99% is not good enough. And, so faithfulness is something that should be always faithful. Always faithful. One of the most devastating things that people may experience, and most of us have at some point in different levels, is to be betrayed by someone. Someone that you trusted. It may be a wife, it may be a husband, it may be a child, it may be a friend. You feel betrayed because for some reason they weren't faithful to their commitment to you. And you feel betrayed by that. And our society is filled with people who are unfaithful. And because of that, we have broken homes and broken families and things like that. A friend that you thought was a friend was not faithful is not a friend. And parents are unfaithful to their children. The idea is you have a child, you tell them to do a little baby, you pick up your arm, I'm going to be faithful, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to be nurturing you, I'm going to be your guide in life, I'm going to take care of you. And part of taking care of a child, of course, is to take a child that is 100% dependent upon you. And at some point, you raise that child so it becomes 100% dependent upon the Lord. And because one day, a child is going to leave home. You got to make sure they're going in the right direction. So, but we do find parents that are unfaithful, and we do find children that become unfaithful. And faithfulness is a key part of your love commitment. Because love cannot exist without faithfulness. Super fidelis, always faithful. We sometimes heard people say, well, so-and-so, he has a lot of integrity. Really? It's a lot of integrity? You're either a person of integrity or you're not. You know, integrity is not measured by degrees. Well, he's 50% has integrity. He's got 75% of integrity. He has 80% of integrity. You're either a person of integrity or you're not. The same with faithfulness. You're a person that is faithful or you're not. And if you're not faithful, there's something spiritually wrong with you. So be faithful. It's like saying God has a lot of integrity. You know, no, God is a person of integrity, or a God of integrity. Like wives, like husbands, children, and friends, the integrity of God measures his faithfulness. The integrity of God measures his faithfulness. In other words, is God faithful? Always faithful. That's what we're looking at today. Compare our attitude toward the Lord compared to what I would suspect is the majority attitude of Judeo-Christian church. God is always faithful. I don't know if he wore a uniform or not. But I suppose if he wore a uniform, it might be a Marine uniform, I don't know. Psalms 33:4. For the word of the Lord is right, and all his works are done in truth. That's pretty awesome. The word of the Lord is right. All his works are done in truth. That's the King James. The New International Version says, for the word of the Lord is right and true. He is faithful in all he does. He's faithful in all he does. Not just part of it, just some time, maybe, maybe not. He might change his mind. He's faithful in all he does. Book of Hebrews called the faith chapter. That lists all not all, but many of the patriarchs and people of notoriety in the scriptures, and Paul points out, I say Paul, book of Hebrews. Some people say it's Paul. Other people suspected Priscilla, which I suspected probably was Priscilla, because whoever wrote it was hesitant to put their name to it. Paul didn't have any problem identifying he was the author of the book. But this one did have an author. And there's so much from the Jewish Talmudic religion, so much anti-women ideas and so forth against women, that when Priscilla wrote the book, she probably was afraid to put her name to it. That's my own personal opinion. Anyway, but the book of Hebrews, the 11th chapter, says of these list of people that they were faithful. They're faithful to the Lord. And God expects us to be faithful also. To the end. Some of these people were faithful and received torture and they were hateful. And the Bible said lived in caves and dens of the earth and saw the thunder and so on. Yet they remained faithful. Now the word faithful is not used in the next passage, but it detects the same thing. This is Luke 9:62. And Jesus said unto him, no man, having put his hand to the plow, looking back, is fit for the kingdom of God. It's a metaphor. I don't think anybody is plowing fields, but it's a metaphor. If you're going to make a commitment to Christ, if you're going to make a commitment to the ideas that we believe in and hold dear and embrace, if you're going to make a commitment to those things, you've got to be committed to the end. To the end. A lot of people aren't. They say they are. Maybe they are for a short period of time, but they don't remain faithful. I know a young man and came to this church for a while, and he told me, he said, Pastor Rob, I've heard you say that so many people are just 3 to 5 years. And he said, I don't want to be one of those people. I don't want to be one of those people that slips away within 3 to 5 years. I don't want to be one of those people. Well, where is he at today? I told a person here a while back, right back in the foyer of the church, he said to me, what can we do? What can we do to help promote our ideals of our race? What can we do? I said, well, the cheapest and easiest thing to do is be at church every Sunday. That's the cheapest thing to do and the easiest thing to do. I say cheap, but you maybe shouldn't pay tithe. That's pay the light bills around here and all the improvements we have. But the cheapest and easiest thing to do is be at church. And he's, well, I don't know. He never came back either. But it's really true. It's really true, because that's where we find strength. You know, people say, well, I can worship God out of the woods. Well, I guess you maybe can worship God out of the woods, but here is where you find community and you find strength among your fellow kinsmen. God expects you to be faithful. So we find the word faithfulness here in this passage. We just read a minute ago, our opening passage. And I saw heaven open, behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. Christ coming on a white horse. I don't know if Marines wore, maybe at one time they rode horses, I don't know. Now there's lots of words that people have used to describe Christ. You know, Jesus is love, they say that one a lot. He's been called Savior, he's been called Creator, he's been called the Deliverer. He's called King, Lamb of God, Lily, Shepherd, Lily of the Valley. And other things Christ's been identified as. But here we find Revelation, the return of the Lord. He's coming on the horse, metaphor I'm sure. And what is the name that he has on him? Is faithful. Faithful. More than anything else, Jesus is telling us he's faithful. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. He will be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. Called all those things. But when he returns, the name on his breastplate, I believe it says in another passage, is faithful. It also says that he has a name no man can understand. Well, probably it's true. Because none of us can be as faithful as Jesus was. So of all the characteristics that we can give about Christ, is faithful. The word faithful comes from the Greek word pistos, and it means, as I understand the dictionary, is to be faithful in the transaction of business, the execution of commands, or the discharge of official duties, one who kept his plightful faith worthy of trust that can be relied upon. Faithfulness, something you can rely upon. I've always told my kids, and whatever influence I have on my grandchildren, I said, when you give your word that you're going to do something, be somewhere, or do something, you do it. If you can't do it, then let the person who plenty of time know. Just don't do it. You made a commitment. Your integrity, the kind of person you are, is understood by how faithful you are. Now, so God is faithful. I think most Christians probably say that. I think if you go up and down the street, especially in churches, they'll say, most Christians say, yeah, God is faithful. Great is thy faithfulness, O God our Father. You've heard the song. So they will say, God is faithful. I think most Christians say that. Psalm 33:4 says, he's faithful in all things. In fact, the very holiness of God stands or falls on one principle, and that is his faithfulness. Is God faithful? If God is not faithful, he has no integrity. If God is not faithful, how do we know he's going to keep his commitment to us? How do we know he's going to just cast it to hell because he got tired of dealing with our sin nature? There's several verses in the New Testament given to establish God's faithfulness. Romans 15:8 talks about Christ coming to confirm the promises made to the fathers. Whose fathers? Was the fathers of the Hindus, the fathers of the Zulus, the fathers of the Filipinos, the fathers of Israel. He confirmed the promise made to the fathers. Deuteronomy 4:31. For the Lord thy God is a merciful God. He will not forsake thee, neither destroy thee, nor forget the covenant of the fathers we swear unto them. Is God going to be faithful to the covenant? See, that's what we're looking at here now. If God is the Lord of faithfulness, if faithfulness is how you measure a man or a woman, if faithfulness is how you understand their integrity, now we're going to look and understand, is God faithful to the covenant? We who understand our identity says, yes, he is. He is faithful to that covenant. That's what he called Abraham. He is faithful to that. But the church world said, nah. He tossed Israel aside and then took in the Gentiles over here. Of course, they misunderstand what that means. He's a merciful God, will not forget the covenant of thy fathers, he sware unto them. We all read Luke 1:72 about the faithfulness of God. He's going to come and remember the covenant. We're going to read it here shortly. Now, if I remember, and I pointed this out before, and I think you all, well, you're going to hear it again, because maybe there's somebody here who didn't hear it. We read Luke, we're going to read it here shortly, but we read in Luke 1:72 that Christ came to remember the covenant. Why? He's faithful. He doesn't forget the covenant. And yet, if I remember the covenant, I talk about the covenant, I am called a racist. So God remembers. He doesn't forget. We forget. We forget all the time. It's our human nature. Numbers 23:19 said, God is not like a man to forget or that he'll lie. God is not like man that he should lie. So we're caught up in this struggle, and we need to hold on to faith. The struggle we're facing as the sons and daughters of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, it's the people he made a covenant to, we're under this struggle. The struggle from those who want to destroy the treasure of God. Now God made a covenant with Abraham and Sarah. We read that in Genesis 12:1-3. Now the Lord has said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show you, and I will make of thee a great nation. And we'll call that nation Israelite. It can only exist if we get dependent upon America, and it has nobody that's on its own, and everybody hates it. Well, no, of course not. He said a great nation. Maybe it's just my nationalism, but somehow I think America is a greater nation than that sandbox over there in Palestine. And sometimes I just feel that way. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but it seems like they can't exist without our financial aid. So I think when God said a great nation, I think anybody points toward that little sandbox is blind, ignorant, or don't want to hear, or deny, or they want to deny the truth. In essence, what they're saying, God is not faithful. He said to Abraham, I will make of thee a great nation. And thou shalt be a blessing, and I will bless them that bless you, and curse them that curse thee, and thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Of course, we talk about that some more too, but deal with it now. Now remember, the one characteristic of God which stands out above everything else, I believe, is his faithfulness. Not only is he faithful, it points out in Revelations, he's called faithful. More than anything else. That's the name that highlights everything else. All those other wonderful names, Almighty God, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, all those things, yes, are given. But the one thing that is not a given unless it's a person who extreme integrity. It's his faithfulness. He's always faithful. Simplify. God does not lie. He doesn't change. He keeps his covenants. Is God faithful to the covenant? His covenant made to Abraham. Is he faithful? We believe in Christian identity, we believe he is. I get the feeling from most of the church world, they believe he was not. And Abram was 90 years old, and the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be thou perfect. And I'll make my covenant between me and thee, and I'll multiply thee exceedingly. Abram fell on his face, and God talked to him with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Now point out, he did not say, Abram, I'd like to make a deal. We'll see if we can work out some type of agreement. No, he gave Abram, who they would then change Abraham later, he could not accept it. He could not reject it. He just got it, whether he liked it or not. He became the father of many nations. He became the father of a great nation. Neither shall thy name be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations I have made thee. Who made Abraham the father of many nations? Was it Abraham? No. God made him the father of many nations because of that, he's faithful. And I'll make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings will come out of thee. Now, a lot of people point out to the like monarchs. I interpret that to be a little bit different. Is kings mean leaders? Leaders of nations, but leaders in industry, leaders in finance, leaders in inventions. Like Thomas Edison was a king. You know, the guy who give us the railroad and the televisions and all the different improvements we have in life. You know, these are all king makers, in a sense. None of that stuff came out of Africa. They didn't have any kings. I guess I'm prejudiced. Maybe I am racist. And I will establish my covenant with me, and God's going to establish the covenant. I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee and their generations, for everlasting covenant to be God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. In other words, that covenant, we call it the Abrahamic covenant, but the covenant was made to each and every one of us. We put our name into that covenant. Because we are the generations that came after them. That covenant was made to Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Jacob, but it was made to each and every one of us. We are all part of that covenant. Why are we a part of the covenant? Because God is faithful to the covenant. And I know it may be redundant, but I like what I'm going to say next, so I say it a lot. Over 200 times in the Bible, he refers to himself as the mighty God of Israel. And that does not even include when he says, I'm the father of Israel, or the salvation of Israel, or the king of Israel, the deliverer of Israel, the rock of Israel, or the redeemer of Israel, the holy one of Israel. Don't include those titles. And not once did he say, I'm the mighty God of the Zulus, the mighty God of the, whatever they have down there, New Zealand and Australia, Bushmen or something. He's not the mighty God of those people. He's the mighty God of Israel. He's faithful to that covenant. That's important. It's important to understand that. Because he made a covenant. He made a covenant. And I'm not saying this with any type of pride. But he made a covenant with us. And we are grateful to that covenant. Romans 5:15-8 said he came to confirm the promises made to the fathers. Whose fathers? Our fathers. So we're talking about the faithfulness of God. Now, if God made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he did. If God made it faithful, and God is faithful to that covenant, which he is, And today, we believe, and those of us who are the racists in Christian identity, we believe He is still faithful. He is still faithful. He is still the Holy One of Israel. He is still the Redeemer of Israel. He is still the God of Israel. And He's still the Father of Israel. He's still faithful to that covenant right to this very hour we live today. Proverbs 147, 19 through 20 says, He shows His word unto Jacob, His statutes and His judgments unto Israel. He had not dealt so with any other nation. Very selective. I think God might be a little bit of a racist himself. So now here. For when God made a promise to Abraham, because He could swear by no greater, He swore by Himself. There's no one greater than God. If you're going to go buy a car sometimes, especially a youngster, usually you don't have any credit. And they might say, we can't sell you the car. They say, well, my dad had lots of credit. Can I have my dad's co-sign for me? They say, oh yeah, your dad wants a co-sign for you. And they'll be fine. We're not sending you the car without a co-signer. All right, so that's what we're saying here. There's no one greater than God. God didn't need a co-signer. It says, surely I'll bless thee, and multiply, I will multiply thee. And so after he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise. For men verily swear by the greater an oath for confirmation to them to end all strife. In other words, Dad is signing this contract, so all the strife is over. Dad is responsible for paying this car off. My name is on it, but ultimately, if I don't pay it, Dad's going to cover it. Or Mom, maybe the case may be, whatever it is. When God will more abundantly to show unto the heirs of the promise. Who are these heirs of the promise? I think it's a promise to Abraham, isn't it? Maybe not, I don't know, but I think it's pretty evident, self-evident to me. God will more willing to show heirs to the promise. The immutability of His counsel confirmed it by an oath. In other words, He's going to show His faith in it. That by two immutable things in which it was impossible for God to lie, we might have a strong consolation who have fled to Him for safety, for salvation, for refuge, for our deliverance, our redemption, have fled to Him for refuge to lay hold on the hope set before us, which hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast. Now listen, people say all the time, how do you know you're saved? I just feel it in my heart. Well, that's nice. I'm glad you feel it. I just know it. Well, all those things are important. I understand that. We read right here in Hebrew. How do we know God is faithful? Because He is faithful to the covenant He made to Abraham. That's what Hebrews is saying there. We can go to Him for refuge, for salvation, because we know God doesn't lie. He has an oath. He confirmed it. And what is the oath He confirmed? The covenant He made with Abraham. God is faithful in all things. He's faithful in that covenant, even unto this day. So, people sometimes, it don't make a difference if you're identity, or if you're a racist, or if you're Israel, whatever. What difference does it make? Well, it makes a lot of difference. Because it helps us to understand the faithfulness of God. We have salvation, we come to Him for refuge, and we know, because He doesn't lie, we know because Hebrews tells us He's faithful to the covenant He made with Abraham. Now I'm going to end real quick here. Well, maybe not so. Now we're here in Revelations. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire. And then had gotten the victory over the beast, over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand in the sea of glass, having the harps of God. They sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, great and marvelous are thy works, Lord Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. They sing the song of Moses. That's kind of important. People overlook it all the time. They say, song of Moses, what does that mean? They don't overlook it all the time. They sing the song of Moses. What is the song of Moses? According to that, at some point in the future, in metaphor terms, we're going to be on a sea of glass and we're going to be singing the song of Moses. What is the song? I don't know. What is the Song of Moses? Can anybody here sing Song of Moses? You can, you just don't know it yet. I'm going to tell you why you can't. Everyone right now can stand and sing the Song of Moses. Because the Song of Moses is not words. It's not really a song like so many words. There are two places where the Song of Moses is mentioned. Exodus 15, the other is Deuteronomy 32. They both have the same theme. The theme in Exodus 15, the theme in Deuteronomy 32 is the same theme that will be sung there. Rejoice, O ye nations. Remember, the nations came from Abraham. With his people, for he has avenged the blood of his servants and rendered vengeance to his adversaries. It will be merciful unto his land and to his people. That's the Song of Moses. The Song of Moses, Exodus 15, is a song of victory over your opposition, or the enemy. What do we tell here in Luke 168? We're going to read it right now, I believe. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he hath visited and redeemed his people. The Song of Moses singing victory. And hath raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David. He spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began, that we should be saved from our enemies. That's the Song of Moses. We're saved from those who are trying to destroy us, genocide us. To perform the mercy and promise to our fathers, and to remember his holy covenant. He's faithful. He's a Marine. He's always faithful to that covenant. The oath which he swore to our father Abraham, that he would grant unto us that we be delivered out of the hand of our enemies, might serve him without fear. This is the Song of Moses. When God destroyed the Egyptians at the Red Sea, they sang the song. The Deuteronomy, they sang the song when they had victory. And at some point in the metaphor terms, and no doubt, we're going to be in their heaven, maybe with their white robes. I don't know. We might be wearing a uniform, a Marine uniform. I don't know. Or maybe Mark Hayes, maybe Air Force uniform. I don't know. I'm being silly now, I know. But we're going to sing the Song of Moses, rejoicing that God had delivered us from our enemies. Daniel 2:44, same thing. In the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people. Not to other people, to his people. It's not going to be left to all these other people out here. They're not getting the kingdom. It shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all of these kingdoms, and it shall stand forevermore. It will stand because God's a Marine. Jesus is a Marine. He's faithful. Simplified Alice. Always faithful. From the time he made that covenant, called Abraham out of the Ur of Chaldees, up to this hour, God has been faithful. Those in Christian identity, we believe that. We understand that. We understand his faithfulness. And the church world over here, they just can't figure it out. They just can't figure it out. God declared to Abraham. God declared to Isaac, and we close. God declared to Jacob. And God declared to all the generations that came after them, to us, to this very hour. He declared to them, simplified Alice, I am always faithful. He kept his covenant to Abraham. He kept his covenant to Sarah, to all their generations. He kept his covenant because he's faithful. And just like Hebrews 6:19, that rock, that understanding of his faithfulness, we can witness throughout history, the faithfulness that God has delivered to our people. We can understand the faithfulness is what is the rock, steadfast and sure.